Okay, guys, welcome to NAMA July 2025. Let us know you can see and hear us. We're going to post the link to the group.
Is it posted already?
No, we can't post it until we start it.
Okay. So we're speaking into the void.
Yes, but they'll see it in the recording. So they think, wow, they've got their act together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, should I post it here?
Yes.
Or its own post?
It's both. Just do its own post and also send it to me.
Okay, that was neither of those things. Okay, there you go. You should use the everyone tag.
I already used it today.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll give a second for people to join in.
Oops.
Are you going to post a post?
I thought you were posting a post.
Oh, no, I wasn't, because you said to send it to you.
Oh, yeah, to put it on people's questionnaire.
Okay, I didn't realize that you would do it.
This is the messy start we're having this afternoon.
I did not realize that you were going to just respond to each individual person. Okay.
And I can't do an everyone.
I don't know if I can either.
Anyway.
Okay, we'll see if it lets me do an everyone and you do an everyone.
Yep.
Oh, looks like I got away with it. Nice. Lucky us.
Learn new things every day.
Indeed.
Okay. Do you want to start with news or do you want to?
There, we got some people starting to join in. So if you're watching, let us know that you can see and hear us. I mean, we're pretty sure you do, but it's always good to know that you are getting what we're trying to live stream.
Nice to know that there are live people on the other end.
Mm-hmm. Not just robots. Okay, so I guess we can start with news. What news do we have, Natalie?
You're getting ready to go to Pittsburgh again.
I am. I'm attending a workshop this time.
Yeah, Maggie gets to attend a workshop.
Maggie's first workshop that she's ever working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be good for her.
She just, I think we said, did we say this last time? She just got her NW1.
We may not have.
Very exciting.
I think we did. Yeah.
I think we did. Yeah, I'm home more than I have been this month, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
I'm judging in Fayette, Missouri on the third weekend of this month. And then next month, I'm going to Texas for a murder mystery. And then I'm going to Minnesota to judge AKC, and then Arizona for a mini camp that Alex Woodruff is putting on. And then and then I'm going to California for a little event. What are you coming up?
I've got a couple of events shaping up in Pennsylvania. I got Texas. I got New Mexico. So I'm doing quite a bit of traveling. It's still
are any of those open for registration right now?
I don't know. We'd have to put you in contact. If you're in one of those regions and want to get invited, I have to put you in contact with the host. And then it's still hunt test season. So my life is kind of crazy as I try to get master titles on my 2 hunting dogs. You just released a deal. Did you talk about that already?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I just released my July birthday private lesson package. So that's running through my birthday, which is the 22nd. And some of you bought those before and should use them. But if you're considering buying this one, it's good for 2 years. So I don't know if I'll run one again in a few months or next year or not, but it's there now.
I've gotten multiple people asking about a virtual intro session. So I'm going to put one on in August or September. So we need to get that out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else? We're going to try a couple new things today in our NAMA. We're going to start a new featured section. I think we'll start with that, where we're going to go through a debrief and walkthrough of a trial and just talk strategy, talk about the trial, talk about what we think. And we want you guys to let us know what trials you're most interested in us looking at. We're just going to take the most recent trial on the walkthrough list. But if you have particular trials that you'd like our insight on, like what would you do with this search area, that search area? What did you think of this? I think we're going to make this a thing.
At least for a little while.
Yeah, at least if it's interesting to people. So,
yeah, are we going to start with our questions today? Or are we going to start?
I think we're going to start with this and then go to questions.
Okay.
Let me see. I think this window is what I want to do. Yay, I think it's working. I've never actually shared my screen from YouTube, so this is new.
That's not going to happen.
Oh, it's not happening, so we got to do this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to look at Delran, New Jersey. We have an NW3, NW1, NW2, and Elite. We can look at all the major levels.
Yeah, we might not look at all of them.
We're not going to get through all of them. Which one do you want to look at?
Let's look at the NW1 and the NW3 maybe.
Okay, we'll start with NW1. Let's look at this walkthrough.
And some of these we don't even have to really watch.
No, just look at them.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we've got a beautiful circle of boxes.
Yeah, this is always an exciting pattern to see.
And a start line that's fairly distant from the containers. One of the big mistakes I see people making is starting at the cones instead of at the containers. I just watched a video where that was my number one criticism. The next thing that we should look at when we're looking at a circle like this, one, you should see a circle as one straight line. Just see it as a straight line. And do you want to be on the outside or do you want to be on the inside? You don't know that unless you practice it. Most people find that the inside is a lot easier. You have to move less. Just kind of, it's like lunging a horse. You just stand in the middle and let the dog go. Some people find it easier to drive the dog around from the outside. But in general, if I'm handling this, you better believe I'm going to be on the inside of that circle. Yeah,
because the big downside to being on the outside is that the dog who's already faster than you, in most cases, not 100% of dogs, but generally the dog's faster than you, and now they have a head start because they're on the shorter inside track and you're on the longer outside track. So people tend to get further and further behind. They tend to, all of a sudden, the leash is getting tight, or you're switching, back and forth behind the dog's head, and they're noticing that you switching between their eyes, and it's just there's a little bit more often things that go wrong from a handling side if you're on the outside. But in some cases, it's the better place to be. I've certainly handled from the outside when it was called for. So
yeah,
you definitely want to practice both.
Yep. And this is an NW1, so there's only one hide in it. So it's pretty much just get your dog around the search area until they catch the odor. That's the name of the game there.
Yeah. With NW1, my baseline is, I'm going to give the dog half of the time at least where they have complete full rein. And then if they haven't caught anything, then I'm going to see about, do I need to get downwind or somewhere they have not been.
Okay, do you think this is going to be the vehicle or the exterior?
I think that's going to be the vehicle. That's my guess. Now, I know this is another video.
There we go. I just had to pause it. Go ahead.
There was a later video that may shed more light, so we'll see when we get there.
More light?
Yeah.
Have you watched this walkthrough already?
No. I looked at the videos that were in the folder.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it must be the photo.
Okay, here's our photo. So we'll just.
So you don't always get that because oftentimes we don't have access to the cars the day before. So it's nice when you do, but we should definitely talk about when you don't, which is more often than not.
This is an interesting setup of vehicles for an NW1. It's more challenging than I would have imagined looking at the space that was empty. To put it up against a wall, to have kind of two rows here that you're going to have to keep track of, and the cars being so close together, they're definitely interacting with each other compared to if the cars were really spaced out from one another.
Yes,
so
although I think
like this.
that this is about the typical space that you get.
Yeah.
But
they're not always up against a wall.
No, it looks close on video. And while people often worry a lot about walls, I would actually be thrilled that the CEO decided to put them near the wall instead of leaving them out in that open area that we would have expected them to be in. Because now, if they're not easily caught on the wall, on the cars, if you give the dog a chance to go to the wall, you're almost guaranteed they're going to catch something on the wall and be able to go back. We've both seen when we've CO'd at different times, it has to be near a wall for some reason, or you choose for it to be near a wall, and people just keep yanking their dogs back off the wall over and over again, and they end up making it a harder search than it needs to be. But if you let the dog do the work, this can be like an ideal situation.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's look at what I'm guessing. Let's look at exterior first.
Well, what would you say to people if all we had was that open parking lot, and that's what people are looking at the night before, and they're frustrated that they don't have any more information than that? What would you say?
Well, stop looking at walkthroughs. I don't watch walkthroughs. In fact, this may be one of the first walkthroughs I've watched completely. Now that I'm thinking about it, I've made walkthroughs, so I've watched my own walkthroughs when I CO, but I don't think that you should read in too much to walkthroughs. Look what you see here is a totally normal looking vehicle environment. So just do a vehicle search like in training. But it's really that simple. Just do what you would do in training. There's not much thinking and reading into it that you need to do. The arrangement doesn't matter. I'm not changing my handling because I see this photo all of a sudden, or if the cars are on grass or anything like that.
Yeah.
If the cars are on grass and we're freaking out about that, that just means you need to train more on grass. That's all that means. They're not going to change that for you, So like you got to change to meet the level of the test.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I don't even bother opening those videos, if they're not going to contain any visual of what's going to happen the day before. But I also, especially at a level 1, I don't think I'd really care whether or not I saw the videos, because what I look for in videos is there anywhere I think I'm going to forget it's part of the search area, because the search area is complicated. There are multiple adjoining rooms or something like that. If it's one room, just go and work the room. Okay, you want to look at the exterior?
Yeah, let's look at this exterior. Okay. Lots of grass in this exterior. I was just talking to people about how we were doing grass searches and crittering, and I was like, yeah, you're not likely to get a search area this grassy, especially in NW1, but you can. Well, look at that. What a lucky thing to have pulled up. Yep, we've got a very grassy area.
And sometimes it's your only option. Sometimes it's a good challenge. And sometimes it's really, really hot outside, and it's far kinder to you to put the bulk of this on grass than to put it on non-grass. So
now, the most important thing I would say here for people is they're going to go, okay, it's got to be on the bench. And maybe it was on the bench. That's not important. That's not how you should conduct the search.
Yeah.
You should conduct the search by completing the whole area and letting the dog tell you where the hide is. You don't need to march them over to that table. Guess where your dog's probably going to go? They're probably going to go to that table. You probably don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've got this beautiful long start line here, all the way across the whole width of your search area. So I would probably take a moment just for fun. I mean, it's NW1, there's one hide. You don't have to do this, but for fun, I might walk my dog several feet, like 6 feet down away from the start line, so I don't accidentally walk over it. Just walk them down the start line and back up and see if they catch anything. And then whether or not they did, let them go. But, a little prep time before you send them into the search. Obviously, don't walk back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, because that is the judge is going to have to tell you to get going if you do that.
And I'm not sure. I'm assuming this is our start line and we could watch it, but it could be this door too. That's the start line.
It's possible, but that definitely looks like the start line.
It does look like a start line, and I would definitely walk up and down as well. I think that's a good thing to handle. Also, you got to have an open mind. Just because that table and bench looks tempting, and I bet when we watch the debrief, there's a good chance it's on it, but they could put hides other places.
Yeah.
They absolutely could. There's plenty that they could put hides on here if they wanted to. So you've got to keep an open mind that hide could be anywhere. It could be just in the grass. It could be whatever this thing, rock on the ground is. It could be in the crack of the cement. It could be up on this door or this wall. It could be a lot of places.
Yeah, and deciding, where it must be ahead of time is not
It's
useful.
a bad strategy.
That's the one thing I try really hard to not let myself do when I'm watching walkthrough videos. I do not get to guess hide placements. If I want to go back later or to a trial I'm not at and say, oh, where would it be interesting to me to set a hide here? I might do that. Now, I don't get to place anything and run anything and actually check my hypotheses on what odor would do. So I might rather do an exercise like that in person. But yeah, too many thoughts about where hides are not good for you.
Yeah. So we got a question here in the chat, which I think I'm getting this right. So make sure if I get it wrong that you correct me. But if you don't watch the walkthrough, can you do one on site? No, the virtual walkthroughs are a replacement for in-person walkthroughs. If you didn't watch the walkthrough and you want to, you just got to open your phone and watch the walkthrough. Or find someone with a phone that can watch it, and then you can watch it there. I don't do any walkthroughs. It doesn't work for me as a competitor. I find that a lot of people watch these walkthroughs and they just create their own crazy theories and they get neurotic and they get worried. Oh, look at all that grass, and they spin themselves up and up and up, as opposed to just going out there and just do your job. Why do I need to see this search area right here? Why do I need to see it before I run it?
Clearly coned off.
Yeah, like, are any of the boundaries unclear? No. So just go out there and run your dog. That works for me. That's what works for me. You have
walkthrough videos.
If it doesn't work for you, that's fine.
Yeah, in AKC you usually have in-person walkthroughs or briefing on the line. And so different venues. Now there are some AKC clubs who do video walkthroughs, but just depends on the venue.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at this interior. We're gonna have to play this video.
Nice.
Okay, very nice. This is another one where, like, the worst way to be looking at these walkthroughs is to look through this and go, I wonder where the hide is going to be. That is not helpful at all. What did I learn by watching this video that I didn't know coming into the trial?
It's the whole room.
I knew that this was going to be an interior room. It's probably going to have 4 walls and a roof. I knew that. Okay. I don't think I learned anything important looking at this walkthrough video. I guess you could say, oh, I get to look at the flooring. And if that's important to you and your dog, then that can be useful. If you're going to put boots on your dog or whatever, that can be useful.
It all depends on, your dog and what you might need to know. If you never would put booties on your dog, then you don't need to know.
Correct. So for me with my dogs, I didn't see anything here that would give me, I bring to my searches what I think I'm going to need in terms of long lines, if I'm going to go on or off leash, things like that. So you could say, okay, there's some information there I could use, but still, it's a standard interior like all of the ones that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And here's a follow-up question here. Run this off leash? Depends on your dog. Would I run it off leash? Probably. I didn't run any of Maggie's searches off leash at her NW1 because she's recovering from surgery. She can also be a little funny about the floors. I might go off leash and then see, oh, she doesn't like this flooring. I'm going to clip her back on leash and help her around. There's a lot of things I could do. Different people find that running on versus off leash is better for their dogs. I have lots of students who have come to different conclusions here. You can't know whether you're going to run on or off leash until you've practiced it enough times in trials. And I'll tell you this. You should already know before you get to the trial whether you're going to run your dog on or off leash, and it shouldn't change because you see a walkthrough video, in my opinion. Do you disagree?
Generally, I mean, I think so. When IC had flooring issues, whether what kind of floor it was made a difference as to whether or not I would let her off leash. It doesn't now.
But I'm not saying you're like, oh, I'm not going to let them off leash, and then you see the walkthrough video and you go, actually, I am. Ahead of time. If it's this flooring, I'm going off leash. If it's this flooring, I'm going off leash. You've already made that decision long before you even entered the trial. So I could
get to the start line having not seen the video and make that determination there. Exactly. That's true. I think the main thing for a lot of people here would be that there was nothing that was cut out, because that's what people care about. Is that teacher's desk not in play, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that's something.
Which, if it was cut out in general, they will be clearly marked with cones or blue tape or something like that.
They will be, and you can ask the judge.
And even if it's out of play, if you run off leash, if your dog goes back there, you're not getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. Like if they say, oh, there's a safety hazard back here, then don't let them go back there. But again, you're not getting into huge trouble if your dog goes over there for a millisecond and comes back out.
Yeah. And I have no problem with people watching walkthrough videos at all. And I watch them almost every trial.
Sure.
But I do think that it harms people if you obsess over them. And there are games we suggest people play with videos.
Correct.
Watching the video and then drawing the space.
Haha, now you have to draw them all, Natalie, from memory. I think you probably could,
I think I
honestly.
probably could, yes.
Yeah.
With this set, and that's the nice thing about NW1,
Yeah.
because it's the lowest level, you probably don't need more than a quick look to have a good sense of what the space was. Whereas, watching an elite or a summit space, you may have to watch it 4 or 5 times to remotely understand how the spaces are connected to each other.
Yeah. Another thing about running on or off leash, I think it can also partially come down to your personal aesthetic choices. I prefer running off leash. I just like running off leash.
Mm-hmm.
So I run off leash, even though I know, even with dogs that I know it's going to make them less efficient, I go off leash just because I like running off leash. It's just what I like.
Yeah. And I run Icy mostly on leash, and she's definitely more efficient on leash. But there are some times that I would let her off. Like if I was running her in an NW1, I would almost certainly let her off. If I was in an elite trial and I knew that her first elite trial, we knew there were 3 hides and it was only wheelbarrows that were in play, and there were 20 or 30 wheelbarrows. So I was like, hey, she can solve 3 hides amongst these 20 wheelbarrows much faster if she's off leash. So I let her off. But there are lots of considerations for the individual. Okay, what you doing?
I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the folder. It doesn't seem like there's an easy way to do it.
I think there was a way at the top, but
you can show it to me in a moment. Okay. Did we want to look at the debriefs at all? Actually, let's look at the debrief real quick. Just the result sheet.
Ooh,
look at that. It is a crack hide. Okay, so this is why.
Well, it says log.
Yeah, log/crack. Or log crack in parentheses.
Maybe the crack is in the log.
It might be, yes. Yeah, just saying crack. I didn't necessarily mean that had to be in the cement.
Right.
But okay, so that's why you don't assume you know where a hide's going to be.
Yep.
And it's important. I'll bet you. Well, let's actually look. What was the pass rate on that exterior? 95%.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. Good job, guys. Well done. Vehicle, front wheel passenger side of one of the vehicles, apparently.
That's what the video's for.
Yeah. Okay, interior was a file cabinet in the handle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very nice. And then box 5 off the start. I'm assuming going to the left, but it's a circle, so.
Clockwise, counterclockwise, don't know. Doesn't matter. Again, that's what the video's for.
Yeah, okay. And very good pass rates overall. 95, 85, 95, 90, 85, 75, 70% overall. That's looks like people did really well. I mean, I think a lot of people would be freaked out by that exterior. You see how the there it is. Okay.
But again, you don't need to freak out when you see, grass. It doesn't help you. It doesn't make you better to worry about it.
You want to look at the 3 or the elite?
Oh, we can look at the elite.
Yeah, because that's the most extreme difference in them, I think.
Is.
Okay, we're going to look at this elite real quick. Look through this walk.
These are always much more complicated to look at.
Yes, okay. So let's start with this one, and we're going to have to watch these. Which, by the way, those who are watching, can you hear the audio on the video or only us talking? Just let me know so that I can
adjust for it.
Calibrate, yeah.
I love that you've got 2 walls that you could start on.
Yeah.
At that start line.
Okay, there's marking. No mulch, okay. Okay, they're not seeing the...
So that's fine. Why don't you mute her and then... Well, I guess maybe
we need to hear her.
That's
so,
fine.
So we're seeing... She's saying no mulched areas. There's some cones in the background. Oh, you could go off in this search. Very
That's
cool.
fun. This looks like an incredibly fun search. So judging from what you said about the mulch, I'm also assuming that you don't need to go into all these bushes and things, which is pretty
Possibly.
normal.
Yeah. So a
Fun.
nice big search. Yeah, if I were there with my dog, I'd be going off leash. And
I would consider it, but I would also be worried about losing sight of my dog.
yeah, that can happen. I think I'm going off leash, and I'm gonna do what I always do. I'm gonna do a perimeter, and then cut through the middle on a search this big. I'm gonna cut through the middle, but I'm mostly gonna focus on getting around that perimeter. Did she say what the parameters were on this search? I missed it.
No, they usually get that in the briefing, not in the walkthrough.
Oh, weird. Like, I feel like there should be a summary sheet though, but I don't want to look at the summary and the debrief that has everything written out.
Yeah, there is. You just don't get that until later.
Yeah, well, I feel like it should be in here.
Well, they don't give that to you till the morning of because they may need to make some changes.
True. Okay, so that's that search. Very different. We're going to look at the summary sheet in a second, but let's get a sense for what they look like.
Oh, this is going to be containers only. So we might have to look at the debrief to see what that looked like.
Yeah, because she didn't upload a photo. Yeah, so just to answer Joanne's question, is off leash always an option for elite? No, it is not. It is totally based on the safety and what the CO wants to give people as a challenge or not a challenge.
Sometimes it could be perfectly safe to let the dog off leash, but the CO is testing your leash handling.
Yes.
Or it's a much larger room and they don't want the dog to waste time running, really far away. So there can be a lot of reasons that they might not let you go off leash.
Look at that bear.
That's a little bit intimidating.
Okay, that's the start line is the door we're looking at. This is on or off leash as well. Everything is in play.
Ooh.
There's 2 areas not in play. I'm guessing the stairway. No going up the stairs. This is in play.
Fun. So libraries are a pretty common kind of search at elite.
Yeah, that's out of play.
And so, the biggest thing to me is look at how many sort of different spaces there are separated either by bookshelves or tables or open space. They're just different sections, but also a lot of things that might change or stop odor movement.
Another in play, a room off to the side. Okay, back here is in play. This is a big area. Memory is going to be the big issue here. Lots of tables and chairs, lots of bookshelves. And guess what? I'm going to do the exact same thing I said in the other search. I'm going to go off leash. I'm going to do perimeter. I'm going to follow the dog around, see where she takes me, cut through the middle. And yeah.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to do this in sections.
Yeah, I'm going to do it in sections as well.
Like maybe I would do this teacher's desk and that offshoot room, and then the big open table area, and then the stacks with the books, and then the other little offshoot room. And then, if I had time, sweep anywhere else I need to go. Or I might do, it in opposite order. Of course, taking into account what the dog is telling me, not doing that rigidly. But I do like to chunk big spaces like this into smaller sections.
Absolutely. Okay, let's look at this one. And then we'll look at the debrief. Okay, the door there is the start line. On or off leash as well.
Ooh.
Everything is in play, she says.
This is fun. In some ways, how you might work, well, you might work all spaces the same, but
I am going to.
in some ways, this feels like the library search.
Yeah, very similar. And the exterior search, in my opinion.
Yeah, the tables are taller. You've got, somewhat different surfaces, but my approach to memory would be similar in trying to take different sections.
Yeah, I think whenever you've got a big area with the potential for lots of hides, and we'll look at the debrief sheet how many hides were in each area, but when you've got that going on, you have to chunk it into pieces that you can manage and remember where you've been, where you haven't been, what you found, and what you haven't found. That's the key of doing well in Elite, I would say. Although I did okay in our first Elite trial, and I had awful memory.
Did you?
I couldn't remember a single hide.
Oh, interesting. And I say this to people a lot, but I don't worry about counting the hides if it's an unknown number, because what does it matter? It doesn't. I save my memory for where have we been and not been. And
that makes sense.
What kind of hides were they? But if it's a known number or a range, then you for sure need to remember. Well, you need to try to remember. You'll do better probably if you remember.
Okay, so here is what the container search looked like, which
fun.
is, I'm sure, quite horrific for a lot of people. And I think we're seeing there's a hide. Who knows if that was a hide? Was there only two? Well, we're going to find out in a second.
Yeah. Another thing, especially at Elite, but at other levels too, is often things change. The debrief is an overview of the plan, but sometimes things get cut out, and you have to be flexible. You cannot get too tied to what you think the search area is from the walkthrough the day before.
Okay, so we had two unknown searches, one known search, which was the container search, which is kind of mean. I think known searches are often hard for a lot of people.
They're certainly my hardest.
Yes, and it's known in containers with distractions.
Although, at least then if you find 4, you can get the heck out of there, as opposed to wandering around in case there are 10. But yes, I psychologically find those quite difficult. Some people love them.
Mm-hmm. And then we had 2 unknowns and 1 range. So
some pretty good distractors too.
Yeah. The distractions, in case people are looking for what distractions they should throw into their searches: egg, blueberries, potato chips, bagel with chicken, and then salmon.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah, so that's a lot of good distractors that you should all be training against.
And some of those you're going to see, even at like an NW2. So regardless of level, you want to keep varying your food distractions.
Yeah, looks like we had multiple ground hides in that courtyard search.
Nice.
So yeah.
Ooh, an 8 hide search. I love those.
Yeah. Let's see, that's the shop. Let's see what happened in the shop. 8 hides, available point, average score 23.
Yeah.
What should I understand from this?
That people weren't finding everything, but they weren't doing too bad.
Okay, well,
Elite's always, the point of Elite is a challenge.
Absolutely. Okay, let's stop sharing. So this is just a new segment. If you guys have a trial that you'd love to see us go through the walkthrough or debrief, or you would like us to pay a certain attention to certain things, let us know. But our goal in doing this is to help you have some strategy, learn how to get through an area, what we're doing when we look at a search area. What are we going to do? What are we going to handle? Are we doing anything different or special?
Although if we just keep saying the same thing over and over again each time, it may be a short-lived.
But that also may be the key to competing for some of these people.
Yeah,
is to not make it so complicated.
Yeah,
really just go out there and do what you've been trained to do.
Yep. And one of the reasons we're not super focusing on the debrief videos is because you don't know that when you're strategizing the day before. You're not going to know, are there going to be 8 hides in there? Are there going to be no hides in there? So if you're focused on what the result ended up being, I think that's the wrong place to focus when you're looking at walkthrough and debrief videos as a training tool. All you're going to have the night before or the morning of is, that walkthrough video, and your strategy shouldn't be dependent on where the hides end up being. Of course, I think the info you end up getting at the briefing with whether it's known or unknown or range, that affects your strategy. And that, as I said, you'll get the morning of. So
For sure. Okay, you ready to answer some questions?
yes, I have them pulled up.
Excellent.
Okay. Favorite handler proofing drills or intelligent disobedience drills? My dog has become incredibly sensitive to my body position to the point I can turn my body or take a small half step and he will leave a hide he's working and head off in the direction I'm suggesting. Accidentally in trials or on purpose in training. Would love some stupid handler or intelligent disobedience drills to enforce that it's okay to ignore me when I'm being a dumb human. We're already working on the running drill with containers to try to get him to work against me more.
Yeah, so I mean, that is the drill, and I get it. The first place to start, if you already have a list of things that you've done that have pulled your dog off of odor, then do those and make them worse, make them more extreme. The challenge I was going to give everyone, anyways, to begin with, is something I've been telling a lot of people lately. Go out to some natural area that's devoid of anything interesting. Go throw down a bunch of boxes or something and put a hide off to the side in the ground. This is important. And you as the handler should act like you think it's in the containers. Watch how many dogs false alert on the containers because you keep presenting the containers to the dog. And wait the dog out for them to leave and to find that hide that's somewhere else, that's on a tree or in the grass or on a bench a little far away, a little distance away, not too far. But that is the most important container drill. It's not just a container drill. It's a drill about working through odor, despite what the handler is doing, despite what the environment might be saying to them. That's super important. So that's a challenge for everyone. If you haven't done that drill in a while, do it. It's very important.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say, I mean, running drill and bad handler is like an umbrella term for all of these different distractions we might do with our dogs. There's a couple different ways that I would recommend that you do it. The first way is to proof the dog off of their indication. This is often where we'll start, and probably somewhere you should start with your dog.
And that's what I was going to focus on because, and then I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
If he's pulling off mid working a hide, then start proofing this stuff in the indication
when he already knows he's right. Exactly.
Yes, and then back it up into when he's working. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is in our system of training dogs. The dog is going to get multiple hides on odor.
Multiple payments.
What did I say? Multiple hides. Multiple payments on odor before we release them to go find a new odor. So that means if I put one hide out there, the dog will go back for 20, 30, 40 treats, which is great because that allows me to do certain drills. Like the dog finds a hide, I give him a treat, and now I turn my shoulders away, and the dog is expected to stick to that hide while I turn my shoulders away, and I can pay them multiple times and do little spins, do a cartwheel, jump in the air, whatever it is. Okay? So that is the first place to start, is after the dog has indicated a hide. This can be the most straightforward hide in the planet, because the challenge of this is for the dog to stick to the hide no matter what the dog is doing, or no matter what the handler is doing. Okay? Then after that, we start to challenge the dog in their sourcing phase. Technically, that is the first distraction our dogs will see in our classes, because we distract them on primary while they're sourcing primary. But we know when they're sourcing primary, they're not as likely to fall for handler distraction, so we're not worried about it. But that would be step 2 that I would recommend for you, which is what the running drill is, where we're doing a distraction until the dog finds odor. That would be step 2 for me, once the dog is already on odor. Anything else to add to that?
There was something. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think when you're doing this proofing during the indication phase, that it's important that there isn't another hide out there for a while.
Yeah, it's only one hide. Yeah.
Because you don't want the dog to go, okay, I'm running off, and then find another hide. You're like, great, worked out so well to run off from that hide. You want, if they run off, for there to be nothing else.
Yes.
Until you're at the point where you can you can walk around, you can back up, you can turn around, you can clap, whatever you can think of, you can distract with treats, and the dog is going to keep sticking with that hide, mentally or physically, whatever you're working on, until you release the dog.
Absolutely. Yeah. So some of our favorite distractions. When the dog is indicating, my favorite distractions are clapping your hands, reaching into your treat pouch, turning away, dropping food on the floor, pulling on the leash. Those are my favorite distractions to do there.
You have to build up, of course, with
Yep.
everything.
Yep. And then my favorite distractions in the running drill are obviously running. All the things I said before, moving weird, clapping your hands, dropping food, but also things like saying alert prematurely. This kind of stuff is really important. And I wonder too, from everybody else, what are your favorite? You guys have run a lot of this drill in our class. What's the favorite distraction that you did in the class? Or what's the distraction that distracted your dog the most?
Yeah. And another important thing about the running drill is we start that exercise with a straight line of open containers. So it's very, very clear to the dog how to be successful if they can work past that distraction. But when that's going really well, you can expand that concept to like a wall, which is a straight line, like a straight line of containers. And when that's going really well, expand it to a vehicle, which is slightly more complicated, and then expand it to a little bit more complicated search area. So you can progressively move up. It doesn't have to always be the straight line of containers, because the dog should get pretty good at that pretty quickly. But then you can make that more real world over time.
Absolutely.
What else?
I don't know. I gave all my big ones. Those are the ones I kind of rely on the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing is finding the distractions and taking the time to do them.
Yes, I think. Well, and I think for me the big thing of it is to get your attitude in the right place. Like not trying overly eagerly to bail the dog out early, not trying overly eager to defeat the dog and squash their existence. You know, like you got to find that balance where you're like challenging them as much as they can take, and that they actually win. Not that you let them win, but they actually win.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's really important for the handler to be in a game mode mentally. That you're playing a game with the dog where you're trying to distract them off of their job, which they should not want to be distracted. But I think if you come at it from that mindset, then you can progress pretty quickly, but you also don't end up bailing the dog out really early, because you are in a adversarial position, even though you're still, trying to make it so they can end up successful.
Absolutely. Okay. What's the next question?
Okay. Short dog question. My dogs don't like it when I bend down to unhook the leash, etc. Is this something I can proof against, and how?
Yeah, I mean, just do it. Like reach down to, what is it? Unclip the leash?
Yeah, or similar.
Yeah, whether you're clipping or unclipping the leash. Reach down there, unclip the leash, throw them a treat. Reach down there, clip the leash, unclip the leash, clip the leash, throw a treat, throw a treat, throw a treat. Do that over and over again. Pretty soon the dog won't be upset about it. You might end up getting to the point where the dog is maybe paying too much attention to it. But the more you do it, the better it gets. And I find when my dog doesn't want to do something, they have to do it 3 times, or they have to do it until they no longer are showing signs they don't want to do it. So let's say there's a plastic bag on the ground and my dog doesn't want to walk by it. They're a little afraid of it. Okay. We're going to walk by it at least 3 times, and maybe until we can walk by it without you being scared of it. And whatever I'm going to pull out, treats, toys, just distance, leash pressure, whatever I need to do. But like, instead of just being like, oh, you're afraid of that, let's leave. We're gonna be there now. As soon as you show that you're nervous about it, we're stuck here until we're like made some progress. And
progress looks different for every dog, so you have to be calibrating to what is progress for your dog. Yes. And what do you need to do to enable that progress.
Yes.
Maybe you need to be 50 feet away from the bag and work in, slowly, and then out again.
Yes.
Yeah. And definitely, I don't know what your normal time, like if there's only a couple times a day or a week that you're putting a leash on the dog. I'm sure you probably actually put leashes on your dogs very often, but if it's usually like, oh, we're in a rush to get downstairs, or we're in a rush to get to a search or whatever it is, then take some time to play with it when you can just sit on the couch and it's no big deal. And then you can do some standing, and then you can do some, maybe you're at where you would put the leash on to go outside, but you're not actually going outside. And you're putting the leash on and off, and pull it out of the more time crunch or stressful moments.
Yes. We actually have a game. I don't know if we put this in the game book or not, but it's a drill where we'll set like 4 hides up, and at every hide, you're going to switch from on to off leash and back and forth until you find all the hides.
Yeah, I love that exercise.
And it's an important one. There's so many dogs who think as soon as you clip them on leash, they think you're going to put them in the car, which may be why your dogs get nervous about having leash put on them or taken off them, is that they think that means the fun is over. So desensitizing that and just saying, sometimes I just put you on and off leash. It doesn't mean anything. You just keep going about your business.
Yeah. And if it's a lot about the pressure of, a much, much, much taller than them person leaning over them, then, maybe sometimes you lean over and it rains little treats on top of their head or something, just making it so it's no big deal.
Okay. I had a question from someone a while back, and I'd forgotten about it until now. But there's someone who's putting their dog on odor, and I told them, okay, first thing to do is to look up when an ORT is that you want to enter. And we're going to put your dog on odor a month to 2 months ahead of that ORT. And she was like, oh, that seems really fast to put them on odor about a month before an ORT. And I was like, yeah, it's fast compared to how I started. It's fast compared to how a lot of people do it. But that we've discovered, there seems to be like a sweet spot that if you put the dog on odor, like at one point, they just don't know enough about odor. So they're just not, they're going to fail because they just have not had enough experience. And then the dog gets experience, and they start to really understand it. And if you go longer than that, the dog starts falsing. The dog starts experimenting. What is really earning me the treat? Is it the odor? Is it just nose bopping objects? What is it that produces the actual result?
They start to think more about the handler and the handler's role.
And I think that's usually happens somewhere around 3 to 6 months of being on odor, depending on how frequently you're practicing and what kind of breed and the intelligence of your dog and that kind of thing. And so I find that there's a sweet spot right at 1 month where the dog is like, oh, I love this. I find odor, I get paid. And they have just like a very pure understanding of what their job is that hasn't been corrupted by our sloppy timing and miscommunications.
Yeah. Again, depending on the dog.
It does depend on the dog.
And it does tend to freak the handler out because, especially if they are a more novice handler. How am I going to know what my dog looks like?
Yeah.
But hopefully they've been learning what their dog looks like before they go on odor as well.
Yes. And so the question was, they wanted to know more about why there is this sweet spot, which one part of that answer, I have theories about it, but we may not know why it happens exactly. But I can tell you it seems to happen. It seems pretty strong correlation in my experience training dogs for trial that doing it this way has a very high success rate. Otherwise, we need to keep the dogs on odor for about 6 months before they're like fully solid on odor to do it again. And so it seems like even my students who go to their first ORT and they pass 2 out of 3 and they take a little while before they redo the last odor they need, you suddenly have a drop off in pass rates. And some of that has to do with just nerves. Like, oh, I failed it last time. Now I'm nervous. I'm going to fail it again. Some of that is nerves, but some of it is also the dog has just had more experience of like reading the fact that we're being awkward and weird about how and when we're paying them. And so the dog is offering these false alerts.
I also think that learning anything, you have like a growth phase and then a plateau phase and then drop-offs of certain kinds.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
As things get more complicated or whatever it is.
Absolutely. I really do think that it mostly has to do with our poor timing.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you had really, really solid timing, it wouldn't happen. Or would be like a millisecond where the dog tried to false and then they'd get over it because you handled it perfectly.
If you have the right answer, it's for anything that the dog throws at you, it's less likely to happen. And I do think you see this less with experienced handlers who have put those pieces in place in their own minds ahead of time. I also want to say with our first dogs, actually, we went through your first dog. You went through things very quickly. I think I waited 6 months or so to do my first ORT, maybe a little longer. But you did your first ORT with Lumi at 3 months, which means she'd probably only been on odor for 6 weeks, maybe.
Probably.
And as I remember, it went great.
Yeah, it went great. Yeah.
And my first one with Cinnamon did not go great, but that was for other reasons, most likely.
And Ghost didn't go great either. And I think that was for different reasons, but also I do think she had more odor experience than was useful for her.
Could be. There was also a bunch of really distracting stuff that happened in the parking lot that I think made her a little more stressed out. And we also were mid-discovering that she doesn't really like audiences.
No.
And, with like Icy, I put her on odor 2 weeks before her ORT. But I had already gotten ORTs on 2 other dogs and trialed other dogs.
If you've trialed other dogs, yeah, that time frame can be squished significantly.
Yeah.
Because one of the big components of doing an ORT is feeling somewhat comfortable doing blind searches. And if you've already are comfortable doing blind searches with the other dogs, it goes easier and easier and easier. I can speak from experience, having passed like 8 or 9 dogs through ORTs now. It just gets easier and easier. Just go in there and you pass or you fail, and you don't stress about it anymore. You just go and do it.
Yeah. And I think people are often worried, like, this is a new dog. How am I going to read them? But if you can read dogs in general, you can read that dog. It's very rare to have a dog who's so different or so subtle that you can't read them. Especially the way that we train nose work, where they have such a classically conditioned response to odor. Their body is going to respond in some way. So if you're controlling your nerves and staying open-minded, you're going to see that. Of course, we can be too fast and the dog was actually just sniffing something else interesting or whatever. But, to me, the important thing is that the dog solidly understands odor in new locations, but not that I think I could go, pass an elite trial or something with them. I think sometimes we forget that it's just one hide in a box.
Yeah. Some people had trouble when they first released element trials. They were at the elite level. Some people had trouble going back to level 1, and they failed a few. There is something that's kind of lost in like almost the innocence of first starting out, being able to do these easy one hide searches.
Yes. And I think it's a good lesson for all of us. I mean, we've been saying this for many, many years now, but keeping that percentage of single hide searches high is really, really important. And the simple hides as well, that you could be doing a lot of single hide searches, but you could be doing the craziest summit hides you could think of. And that's probably not in your best interest either. You need some where the dog just goes, hey, I caught it and it's here, and I don't need to problem solve for 3 minutes to source it.
Yep. Okay. So while Natalie looks up the date for the next NAMA, I want to recap a couple things. One, if you'd like to see a trial, debrief and walkthrough, work through and our insights on what it looks like and how we would handle it or things like that, and you have specific questions about it or something like that, start submitting what trials you'd like us to look through, and we'll start adding them to a list. We're going to try to do one every single NAMA, 1 or 2 trials. And then you have a challenge this month, which is to create a very attractive looking search area. This is kind of like looking at that NW1 exterior search. That's partly what put this in my mind, and also some of the questions that we got. So set up a productive looking area, either by using boxes or containers or something.
Or benches,
yeah. And have the hide off to the side in a less productive looking area, just on the grass, just on a tree, something that doesn't look attractive and productive. And your job is to handle as if you think it's in that productive area and make your dog convince you otherwise and make them pull out.
Yeah. And so many people still don't want to go and just work. So this is a separate exercise. Don't want to just go work really boring looking areas. They really want to work like, all the fun, cute trial hides I could set. But sometimes, after you do this, present the containers when it's actually in the environment, go and do just a completely uninteresting, featureless area. No benches, no logs, nothing, grass and trees, and set a hide and see what your dog does. Do they try to leave the area to look for objects that look noseworthy to them? Do they only want to work the trees because they're the closest things to objects? You know, does your dog know how to just hunt when there aren't objects
Correct.
pulling them in?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a corollary to the challenge.
Excellent. Okay, when's our next name?
That is August 18th.
Okay, August 18th. Start sending us your questions and requests for what you'd like us to analyze and look at.
And again, if there's a specific trial, now of course, if we get 20 different trial requests,
We'll just add them to the
pick
list,
one.
and we'll just go down the list, first come, first serve, probably,
Yeah.
unless there's a particularly interesting reason why someone wants one reviewed.
Yeah, and if you really want to bump yours up on the list, you could give us why it's
Yes.
compelling. Why does it need to be reviewed?
Absolutely, and give us some questions about it because we like questions.
Yes.
Okay, great to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in August. Oh, August schedules should be coming out when? When should we promise those? Let's get a deadline
should
because you
we
work better with
promise?
deadlines.
15th.
Okay, on the 15th, August schedules will be released. Okay, so we'll see you there. Bye, guys.